The lights glare down, hot and bright, illuminating the stage like an interrogation room. The air conditioning struggles against the crush of bodies in the auditorium, a thick, humid mix of nervous sweat, cheap perfume, and the faint, sweet scent of wilting corsages. My heart pounds a frantic, uneven rhythm against my ribs, a drumbeat against the rising swell of proud parent chatter. Out there, somewhere in the sea of faces, she sits. My daughter. Cap askew, a nervous smile playing on her lips, waiting. This moment. This culmination of 18 years of scraped knees, school plays, late-night study sessions, and whispered secrets. This is supposed to be our moment. A breath held, a shared victory. And standing beside me, my husband, adjusting his tie, a practiced, confident smile fixed on his face. The same smile he uses in boardrooms, on golf courses, at charity galas. A mask I know now. A perfect, impenetrable mask. He clears his throat, stepping up to the microphone. The static crackles, a tiny warning before the thunder. My smile is fixed too, a mirror of his, just as fake, just as fragile. I feel the heat of the lights, the weight of expectation, the tremor starting deep in my gut. This is it. The precipice. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, it helps me more than you know. We built a life that looked like a postcard. 2 kids, a house with a manicured lawn in a good school district, 2 cars in the driveway, family vacations that filled photo albums with sun-drenched smiles. We were the couple everyone envied, the stable unit, the proof that you could have it all. I believed it too. Or I believed in the effort of it. I put in the work. I was the anchor, the steady hand, the keeper of schedules and secrets and the comfortable silence that had settled between us over the years. He was the success, the provider, the public face of our happiness. We played our roles perfectly. For the kids, I told myself. For the life we'd built. For the sheer inertia of 2 decades spent side by side. There were cracks, of course. Tiny fissures in the polished surface. Late nights that weren't about work. Distant looks. A growing impatience with my questions, my needs. The slow fading of affection, replaced by a polite tolerance. I saw them, felt them, the subtle shifts like tectonic plates grinding beneath the surface of our calm. But I plastered over them. With busier schedules, with focusing on the kids, with telling myself it was just the natural evolution of a long marriage. This was normal, wasn't it? The passionate fire settling into warm coals. Only our coals had gone cold. But we kept the fire going for show. Especially for her. Our daughter. Bright, ambitious, standing on the edge of her future. Her happiness was the sun we orbited. Nothing could disrupt that. Nothing. Until he stepped up to that microphone, cleared his throat, and the carefully constructed world I had lived in for 20 years didn't just crack. It exploded. He wasn't supposed to give a speech. He was just there, one of the proud parents, invited onto the stage as part of some vague recognition of parental support segment. A photo op. A chance for the principal to thank the PDA. He stood next to me, our shoulders almost touching, but a chasm wider than the auditorium separated us. The principal finished her remarks, beaming. Handed him the microphone. He adjusted it, looked out at the crowd, and that confident smile widened. It wasn't the smile for a photo op. It was the smile of a man about to drop a bomb. Thank you, he began, his voice amplified, booming through the hall. Thank you to the school, the teachers, and especially to my daughter. A ripple of applause. He paused, letting it build, letting the moment feel warm, familial, perfect. My heart was still pounding, but a new note had entered the rhythm. A dissonant chord of dread. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. He wasn't just thanking her. His eyes scanned the crowd, but they didn't linger on her. They seemed to sweep over me, then past me, towards something I couldn't see. Today is a day of new beginnings, he continued, the smile still fixed, but his eyes held a glint I'd never seen before. Or perhaps I had, and just hadn't let myself recognize it. It was the look of someone cutting bait, someone calculating their exit. A day for looking ahead, for embracing change, for honesty. He paused again, letting the word hang in the air. Honesty. On a day of celebration. My blood ran cold. The tremor in my gut intensified, a full-blown earthquake now. And so, he took a deep breath, the microphone picking up the slight intake of air, amplifying its significance, in the spirit of new beginnings and honesty. I want to announce something else today. He looked directly at me then. Not at me, but through me. As if I were a piece of furniture. Something that marks a new beginning for me. 2. The smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, replaced by something harder, colder. Then it was back. Stronger now. Triumphant. After much soul-searching, I have decided to leave my marriage. The words hit me like a physical blow. Air rushed out of my lungs. The auditorium seemed to tilt. The bright lights blurred. Leave? Here? Now? On her graduation day? My mind struggled to process the sheer, unimaginable cruelty of it.
Publicly.
Humiliatingly. Using our daughter's milestone as a backdrop for his personal drama. The silence that followed his words wasn't total, it was worse. A collective gasp, a ripple of shock that spread through the crowd like a contagion. Whispers started, a low, venomous hum. All eyes turned. Not on the graduates, not on the proud parents. On us.
On me.
I stood there, frozen, my smile shattered, my face burning with a heat that had nothing to do with the lights. Every eye was a pinprick, dissecting me, pitying me, judging me. I could feel my daughter's gaze from the crowd, a raw, wounded confusion. That was the worst. Seeing her face fall, her tentative joy crushed in an instant by her father's monstrous selfishness. He had stolen her moment. He had broken her heart, and mine, in front of everyone we knew. He said more, something about needing to find himself, about us having grown apart, about wishing me well. His voice faded into the roar in my ears, the sound of my world collapsing. I saw him step back from the microphone, the smile still in place, a look of relief, almost on his face. He had done it. He had ripped it all down. And he looked
free.
While I stood in the rubble. The walk off the stage was a blur. My legs felt like lead. I moved on autopilot, vaguely aware of sympathetic hands on my arm, hushed questions I couldn't answer. All I could focus on was finding her, pushing through the stunned parents, the bewildered graduates. Her cap and gown seemed too bright, too symbolic of a future that suddenly felt terrifyingly uncertain. She was crying, quiet, heartbroken sobs shaking her shoulders. "Mom," she whispered, her voice thick with tears and disbelief.
What? Why?
What could I say? How could I explain that the man who was supposed to love us, protect us, had just ripped us apart in the cruelest way imaginable? I held her, whispering reassurances I didn't feel. "It's okay, honey. We'll be okay," lies. They were just lies to staunch the bleeding. The humiliation was a physical weight. Every glance felt like a stab. Every sympathetic word felt like pity, which was even worse. Leaving the auditorium was an escape. The car was a sanctuary, even if the air inside was thick with unshed tears and silent accusations. We drove home in silence, the diploma lying forgotten on the back seat. The house felt different. Colder. Emptier. It wasn't a home anymore. It was just a place where a family had died. The next few days were a nightmare of practicalities mixed with raw grief. He was gone. Packed a bag, left a note on the counter. Apologetic, but firm. He'd be in touch through his lawyer. His lawyer. The cold efficiency of it was another blow. No tearful goodbyes, no painful conversations trying to salvage something.
Just gone.
And now lawyers. The phone rang constantly. Friends, well-meaning, horrified. Trying to pry details, offer comfort. Each conversation was a performance, forcing a fragile composure I didn't possess. I felt exposed, vulnerable, utterly alone. My carefully constructed facade had crumbled, and I was left standing naked in the ruins. The initial shock gave way to a gnawing anxiety. How would we manage? He was the primary earner. My job was part-time, supplemental. Could I support us? Could I keep the house? And then there was her. My daughter. Her future. University was looming, an expensive dream now overshadowed by financial uncertainty and the emotional trauma of her parents' very public implosion. She retreated into herself, quiet, angry. The joy of her achievement stolen. He sent a formal letter from his lawyer a few days later. It was brief, clinical, mentioned separation agreements, asset division, and then, almost as an afterthought, laid out his expectations for custody. Expectations that minimized my role, assumed his continued control, and treated our daughter like a commodity to be scheduled. It was clear he expected a clean break, minimal hassle, and maximum control over the bits of the old life he still wanted. Especially control over the narrative. He wanted to be the strong one, the one who made the hard choice, leaving the messy, emotional fallout to me. He expected me to quietly absorb the shock, the shame, the logistics, and just deal with it. Anger began to simmer beneath the grief. It was a hot, purifying flame.
How dare he?
How dare he inflict such pain, such humiliation, and then expect me to passively accept whatever crumbs he decided to throw my way, especially when it came to our daughter. He had used her graduation as a stage for his announcement, shattering her joy, and now he expected to dictate her future. I spent sleepless nights, the lawyer's letter a heavy weight on my chest. I researched, I read, I felt a cold dread settle in. The legal system felt daunting, expensive, stacked against the one left behind. My early attempts to simply understand the process felt like drowning in jargon and complex procedures. Every phone call, every form, was a reminder of the life that had been ripped away. I felt like a small boat caught in a storm, waves of legal bills and emotional turmoil crashing over me. I reached out to a few friends, tentatively sharing the lawyer's letter. Their pity was hard to bear, but their advice was often contradictory or simplistic. Just get a good lawyer, they'd say, as if good lawyers grew on trees and worked for free. The isolation deepened. I felt ashamed, like I had failed. Failed at my marriage, failed at keeping my family together, failed at even understanding how to pick up the pieces. He called sometimes. Brief, stilted conversations. He sounded
Happy. Free.
talking about his new apartment, his plans. He never apologized for the graduation. He never seemed to grasp the depth of the wound he had inflicted. He talked about our daughter as if she were an appointment on his calendar. It was like talking to a stranger wearing my husband's face. Each call left me feeling colder, more alone, more desperate. The financial pressure mounted. I looked at the mortgage statement, the university tuition estimates, the rising cost of everything, and a knot of panic tightened in my chest. Could I do this? Could I keep us afloat? The future felt like a vast, dark ocean I had to cross alone, with no map and a leaky boat. He was on a yacht, sailing away. One evening, I was sitting in the living room, the room where we had built so many memories, celebrated so many birthdays, argued so many quiet arguments. The room felt haunted. I held a photo album. Pictures of us. Happy smiles, forced smiles, real smiles. Pictures of her. Growing up. Her first steps, her first day of school, her awkward teenage years, her radiant smile accepting her diploma. And then I saw a picture of him, holding her as a baby, a look of pure, unadulterated love on his face. Was that ever real? Was any of it? I looked at the last picture, the three of us on stage at graduation, moments before he spoke. My smile brittle, his smile like glass. And her, caught between us, still innocent of the coming storm. Tears streamed down my face, blurring the images. I felt the full weight of the betrayal, the public shaming, the casual cruelty. The unfairness of it all was a physical ache. He walked away, leaving me to deal with the wreckage, expecting me to fade away, to become a footnote in his new, exciting life. I sank to the floor, the photo album clattering beside me. I couldn't breathe. The sobs were ragged, tearing through me. I felt like a crumpled piece of paper, discarded, worthless. Everything I had built, Everything I had believed in was gone. There was nothing left. Just this raw, howling emptiness. I stayed there for a long time, curled on the rug, letting the despair wash over me, a suffocating tide. All seemed lost. Utterly, irretrievably lost. Then something shifted. Slowly at first, like the turning of a massive, rusted gear. Deep in the pit of my despair, a spark ignited. Small flickering. A single thought. He will not get away with this. It wasn't about revenge, not yet. It was about survival. About dignity. About protecting the one thing that mattered, my daughter. He had used her moment to hurt me. He expected to walk away, consequence-free, and still maintain control over her life.
No.
Absolutely not. The flicker became a flame. The despair began to recede, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. The tears stopped. I stood up, my legs shaky, but steadying. I looked at the photo album again. I saw not just the past, but the future he was trying to steal. Not just from me, but from her. And I realized something else. He wanted it easy. He wanted a clean break on his terms. He wanted to control the narrative, paint himself as the brave pioneer of a new life. He wasn't just leaving me. He was trying to erase me. Erase my years of sacrifice, my role in our daughter's life, my very existence as his partner. And he thought he could do it with a public announcement and a cold letter from a lawyer. That night, I didn't sleep, but I didn't cry either. I sat at the kitchen table, the lawyer's letter spread out before me, and I started to plan. This wasn't just about divorce anymore. This was a battle. A battle for my future, for my daughter's future, for my very soul. He had chosen his battlefield, the public stage, a moment of celebration turned into a spectacle of pain.
Fine.
If he wanted spectacle, I would give him a spectacle he would never forget. If he wanted a public announcement, he would get one too. Only mine would be served cold. Very, very cold. I knew I couldn't fight him on his terms. He had the money, the public image, the ruthless legal team. If I just reacted, I would lose. I needed a strategy. Something unexpected. Something that would hit him where he felt most invincible, his control, his image, his carefully constructed world. He thought he had blindsided me. He thought I was down for the count. But he had just woken a sleeping dragon. The plan began to form, piece by piece, in the quiet hours before dawn. It was risky. It was unconventional. It required absolute secrecy and perfect timing. It felt terrifying, but also exhilarating. For the first time since that day, I felt a sense of purpose. I wasn't just surviving, I was fighting back. And I was fighting to win. The first step was finding the right allies. I didn't go back to the lawyer who had sent the standard letter. I needed someone different. Someone who understood more than just law. Someone who understood strategy, leverage, and the art of the unexpected attack. I asked around, discreetly. I used connections I hadn't thought of using before. I found her, a woman known for being sharp, aggressive, and fiercely protective of her clients, especially mothers. Her name was Anya. Meeting Anya was like stepping into a different world. Her office wasn't plush and impersonal like his lawyer's. It was sharp, minimalist, with abstract art on the walls that seemed to hum with energy. She listened, leaning forward, her eyes never leaving mine. I told her everything. About the graduation, the public humiliation, his lawyer's letter, his callousness. I didn't hold back the anger, the fear, the raw pain. When I finished, she was silent for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. He wanted to make a statement, she said, her voice low and steady. He used a public platform to assert control, to humiliate you, and to seize the narrative. She paused, a flicker of something that looked like ice in her eyes. In law, as in life, the first move often dictates the rest of the game. He thought his first move was checkmate. It felt like it, I admitted, the fear trying to creep back in. But it wasn't, she said, a thin smile touching her lips. It was a brutal, stupid move. And it left him exposed. She picked up a pen, tapping it lightly on a notepad. He wanted to control the announcement, control the terms, control the perception. And he chose a venue that put the spotlight firmly on him. That was his mistake. I leaned forward, my heart starting to beat faster. What do we do? We don't react, Anya said, her voice firm. We pivot. We use the very elements he tried to manipulate against him. He wanted a public spectacle? We give him one. But this time, he's the one caught off guard. I explained my idea, the one that had formed in the dark hours. Serving him. Not in a stuffy office, not through registered mail, but publicly. Unexpectedly. Using a moment that he would assume was safe, that he would assume was his. Anya listened, her eyes widening slightly. When I finished, she was silent again. Then she let out a slow breath. It's audacious, she said finally. It's risky. It could be messy. He made it messy, I said, my voice hard. He chose to detonate our lives on a stage. If there's going to be a mess, he should be standing in the middle of it this time. Anya studied my face for a long moment. Then she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just found a perfect target. I like it, she said. It's poetic justice. It takes his moment of perceived strength and turns it into his moment of greatest vulnerability. It reclaims the narrative, and it sends a very clear message about who is actually in control. We spent the next few weeks planning in absolute secrecy. Anya was relentless. We gathered evidence, built the legal case, drafted the papers. Custody was our primary focus. His casual dismissal of my role, his assumption of control, fueled my resolve. Anya argued that his public abandonment, his cruelty on graduation day, demonstrated a lack of judgment, a prioritization of his own needs over our daughter's emotional well-being. It was a strong angle, especially combined with his attempts to sideline me legally and financially. The plan was complex, requiring coordination. It involved preparing the full suite of initial legal documents, divorce petition, motions regarding temporary custody and support, injunctions to freeze certain assets if necessary. But the key, the theatrical heart of the plan, was the serving. It had to be timed perfectly, delivered with maximum impact. We considered different scenarios, different locations. But one location kept calling to me. The scene of the crime. Graduation. Of course, graduation itself was over. But there were other events. The school kept holding post-graduation functions. Award ceremonies, alumni gatherings, events where prominent parents might be invited, might expect to be seen and applauded. We needed a moment where he would be visible, confident, perhaps even holding court. Anya's contacts were invaluable. She found out about an upcoming donor recognition event at the school. An event where my husband, a significant donor over the years, would be speaking. A perfect opportunity. He would be on a stage again, in front of many of the same people who had witnessed his previous performance. He would be relaxed, feeling powerful, unchallenged. The weeks leading up to the event were a blur of preparation and tension. I lived a double life. To my daughter, I was the steady mom, helping her prepare for university, navigating the emotional fallout of the separation as best I could. To the outside world, I maintained a facade of quiet resilience, the poor thing who had been blindsided. No one suspected what was coming, least of all him. We deliberately kept communication minimal and formal, through lawyers. He had no idea I had lawyered up with someone like Anya, or that I wasn't just reacting but actively planning. He continued with his trajectory, selling himself on social media as the man bravely starting a new chapter, leaving behind a stagnant past. He thought he had already won the public relations war. He was wrong. The day of the donor event arrived. I felt strangely calm. The nervous energy had been replaced by a cold, focused determination. I dressed carefully, not in morning clothes, but in something sharp, confident. A silent declaration that I was not broken. Anya met me outside the venue. She carried a slim briefcase. Inside were the papers, the instruments of his downfall. We entered the hall. It was elegant, filled with people in formal attire, buzzing with conversation. I saw familiar faces, people who had offered condolences mixed with thinly veiled curiosity after graduation. I smiled, nodded, a polite mask firmly in place. My eyes scanned the room until I saw him. He was standing near the stage, surrounded by a small group of admirers, laughing, looking every bit the successful, charismatic man he presented to the world. He looked utterly relaxed, utterly confident. He hadn't seen me yet. Anya steered me towards a table near the front, with a clear view of the stage. We sat, two women in the middle of a room full of unsuspecting people, a silent storm brewing around us. The program began. Speeches from the principal, the head of the donor committee. Polite applause. Then it was his turn. The announcer introduced him with glowing terms: successful businessman, generous patron, respected member of the community. He walked onto the stage to warm applause, a wave of confidence radiating from him. He stepped up to the podium, adjusted the microphone, flashing that familiar, practiced smile out at the crowd. He began to speak, thanking the school, talking about the importance of giving back, about shaping the future. His voice was smooth, persuasive. He was in his element. He glanced towards our table, catching my eye. For a split second, his smile tightened almost imperceptibly, a flicker of surprise, maybe irritation, that I was there. Then it was gone, replaced by the public mask. He clearly assumed I was there, because I felt I had to be, upholding appearances, the wounded wife enduring the awkward encounter. He had no idea. Anya caught my eye. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Our cue. My stomach twisted, a sudden surge of adrenaline. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it. The moment. Everything we had planned, the secrecy, the strategy, culminated in this single, volatile instant. Anya rose from the table. She wasn't carrying her briefcase. She was carrying a thick stack of papers, bound neatly. She walked, slowly and deliberately, towards the stage. She didn't rush, didn't draw undue attention until it was too late. Heads started to turn as she approached the steps leading up to the podium. A few confused whispers rippled through the audience. What was happening? My husband was mid-sentence, talking about the school's future. He saw Anya approaching. His smile faltered again, a look of annoyance now. Did he think she was a process server for someone else? Did he think it was some minor legal formality? He paused, looking impatient. The audience followed his gaze, their attention shifting from him to the woman walking towards him. Anya reached the stage. She walked directly to the podium, standing patiently beside him. He stopped speaking entirely, a question in his eyes, his public composure starting to fray around the edges. The hall grew quieter. The buzzing conversation died down. People were leaning forward in their seats, sensing something unusual was about to happen. Anya didn't say a word. She simply extended her hand, holding out the stack of papers towards him. My husband stared at them, bewildered. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out and took them. He held the thick bundle in his hand, looking utterly confused. He looked from the papers to Anya, then back at the papers. "These are for you," Anya said, her voice clear, calm, and amplified slightly by the microphone he had just been using. He flipped open the top page.
His eyes scanned the words.
Divorce petition.
Custody.
Injunction. His face, moments before radiating confidence, went utterly, spectacularly blank. The color drained from his cheeks. His eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed in pure, unadulterated shock and fury. He froze. Literally, he froze. On stage. In front of the entire room. Holding the papers that announced to the world that his carefully controlled exit, his narrative of freedom and new beginnings, was about to become a messy, public, legally challenging nightmare centered around the very things he had tried to dismiss, his financial obligations and, crucially, his role as a father. The silence in the hall was absolute. A heavy, stunned silence. Every eye was on him, holding the papers, his face a mask of shock. His mouth was slightly open, but no sound came out. He looked like a statue carved from ice. I sat at the table, watching. The physical pain I had carried since graduation day began to recede, replaced by a cold, clear satisfaction. It wasn't triumphant joy. It was something deeper, harder. A feeling of equilibrium being restored. He had tried to break me publicly. I had responded in kind. He had expected me to crumble. I had built an arsenal. The silence broke. A ripple of whispers, louder this time, filled the air. People were craning their necks, pointing, murmuring. The organizers on the side of the stage were in a panic, rushing forward tentatively. My husband finally found his voice, but it was a choked, raw sound.
What?
"What is this?" he stammered, looking at Anya, then wildly out at the crowd. "These are your divorce papers," Anya stated, her voice calm and steady, cutting through his confusion. "And motions regarding temporary custody of your daughter and financial support. You've been served." The word "served" hung in the air, a gavel strike. It was undeniable. It was public. It was happening right here, right now, in the very place where he had thought he was untouchable. He crumpled the papers in his hand, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. He looked at me then, across the room. His eyes were blazing, full of a hatred I had never seen directed at me before. But beneath the fury I saw it. The shock. The complete and utter blindside. He had thought he held all the cards. He had thought I was defeated. He had never, in his wildest dreams, expected this. Chaos erupted on stage. The organizers tried to intervene. People in the audience were standing up, buzzing with speculation. My husband was shouting something, his voice hoarse, unintelligible over the sudden clamor. Anya stood there, unmoving, her expression cool and professional. Her job was done. I didn't stay to watch the rest of the spectacle. My point had been made. I stood up from the table, gathering my small clutch. As I walked towards the exit, I could still hear the raised voices from the stage, the stunned murmurs from the crowd. I didn't look back. Walking out into the cool night air felt like taking my first real breath in weeks. The knot in my chest had loosened. The crushing weight had lifted, replaced by a quiet strength. The battle was far from over. The legal fight would be long, grueling, and expensive. But I had won the first, crucial skirmish. I had taken back my power. I had shown him, and everyone else, that I was not a victim to be discarded. I was a force to be reckoned with. More importantly, I had struck the first blow for my daughter. His public cruelty, his attempted erasure of my role, would now be countered by a fierce, unwavering fight for her well-being and my place in her life. The custody motion served that night wasn't just legal maneuvering, it was a declaration. A declaration that her life would not be dictated by his convenience, and that her mother would fight tooth and nail to protect her. The drive home was quiet. I didn't feel triumphant, not in a joyful way. It was a cold, hard satisfaction, laced with sadness for the ruin of what had been, or what I had thought had been. The perfect postcard life was gone, replaced by the messy, complicated reality of divorce. But I was no longer trapped in the burning house he had set alight. I was standing outside, covered in ash, perhaps, but with my feet firmly on the ground, ready for the fight ahead. He had wanted a clean break. He had wanted to control the narrative. He had wanted to walk away from the mess he created, leaving me to pick up the pieces in shame. But he had underestimated me. He had underestimated the strength born from despair, the resolve forged in fire. He had thought I was weak. He was wrong. I was steel. The phone rang later that night.
Anya.
Brief, efficient. Papers were served successfully.
He was.
Surprised, a dry understatement. His lawyer is already calling, not happy. The ball is in our court now.
Get some rest.
We start the real work tomorrow.
Rest.
The word felt alien. But for the first time in a long time, I thought I might actually be able to. The public humiliation had been avenged. The initial shock had been countered. The path ahead was difficult, but I was walking it on my own terms, with my head held high. He had thought he could steal our daughter's moment, steal my dignity, steal my future. But I had just shown him that some things cannot be taken without a fight. And I was just getting started. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.